Thank you everyone for coming to another Reltio community show. My name is Chris Detzel, and I have two special guests on the topic of best practices on using LCAs and DVF. So we have Thiru Reddy. He's a senior engineer. He goes by Reddy, or sometimes he says. And then Shivaputrappa, is that right, Shiva? Just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Patil? Okay. He's a platform engineer, and I'm really, again, excited about this particular show. So as usual, please keep yourself on mute. All questions should be asked in chat, or feel free to take yourself off mute if you have a question, and we'll ask, and it will be asked one way or another. And then the show is being recorded as we speak, and we posted to the community hopefully by the end of this week. Now, a couple of things coming up. Today we do have best practices on using the LCAs and DVF. Really excited about this one, and I know that the community folks are really excited. We'll have a lot of people, I think, that show up. We do have one coming up on Friday, which is a little bit different, higher level, but it's around data mesh and data fabric. What are the differences, and how does it, I didn't put this in there, but and how it relates to MDM. Next week, Reltio name cleansers for matching. And then we do have a show with Google and Reltio. It'll be a Q&A show and talking about how they improve their data quality. And then on November 8th, we have a Click case study, driving Click's MDM program success and how they use Reltio specifically. And that one is super exciting. That just posted that one up yesterday. Two more things before we completely get started, but if you are part of the Reltio community, we do have a rewards and recognition program. So you can start earning today. So if you log in, you can click that button, or you can click up here when you log in, and you can earn different levels. So you can become a data nerd, data geek, or data genius, and you click here to see how you can do it. And then we also have different badges that you can get, during your time of, participating in the community. These things light up once you actually get the badge. And then the way you earn points and get these badges or levels, we show you exactly how to do that. And then the last thing is check out our new documentation site. It's got a new platform. We're excited about it. Hoping that it's the experience is a little bit easier to read and get to and stuff like that. So check that out and let us know if you have any questions. I'm going to stop sharing and hand it over to Shiva.
You are muted.
Oh, there, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. I'll start. Thanks, Krish. Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Thirupathi Reddy. I am a senior platform engineer in Reltio. I have been with Reltio from last 4.5 years. I deal with LCA, cleans, and DVF. Yeah, today our topic is LCA and DVF. I'll start with LCA and then we go for DVF. Yep. LCA, Lifecycle Action Framework. It's a framework which allows customer partner to inject some custom code into the Reltio platform, which will execute during the lifecycle of an object. This allows, using this LCS, you can create or update or delete or any some operations during the lifecycle of an object. We can apply this LCS on both entities and relationship types. We allow customer to deploy this LCA in two ways. One is with AWS Lambda and another one is native LCA. With AWS Lambda, we can write a LCA code, and after build, we'll get a jar with dependencies. And using this jar, I can create an AWS Lambda function with this jar, and that name we can configure in Reltio business model. Reltio SDK has a capability to make a Lambda call using the keys provided in the physical configuration. And the second one is native LCA, where we get LCA reviews and upload request in the through Zendesk, and these jars will be uploaded to our S3. And we have a LCA service. Our platform has a capability to load these jars dynamically from the S3 when LCA request is made. Okay, we recommend to use AWS Lambda-based LCA due to the following reasons. With Lambda, customer has more control on the deployment, and it's easy to debug, and loggers and all troubleshooting is available in the AWS Lambda. And since it's not shared and it's specific to customer account, there's no nice neighbor issue, and it's better scalable and maintainable. Usually for any small change with native LCA, we'll get LCA review request, and we review and we provide some feedback, and it'll go into some cycles. So to avoid this longer period of review cycle, Lambda is a better option. You can do test and everything. At the end, you can submit for review, and this will speed up the LCA development. Things to know about LCA. LCAs are synchronous for any kind of hooks. All before and after hooks are called synchronous in the during the data load, and this has some performance impact during the data load. All LCAs are Java based, and we recommend to use JDK 1.8. When to use the LCA? If Reltio has some kind of out-of-box functionalities, if that does not suit the business requirement, then LCA is the better option. If any operation has to be done in synchronous manner during data load, and then LCA is preferred one. When not to use LCA, if the business requirement can be achieved using any one of the Reltio out-of-box feature, better to go for that instead of LCA, as LCA has performance impact. Out-of-box capabilities are better option for the implementation. And if you have any notification purpose, notification can be done asynchronously using streams. So not to use LCA for notifications. If performance is the key area, LCA is not recommended. If any asynchronous task, we have observed that some of the LCAs are used after, say, hooks for the asynchronous tasks. So if you have such asynchronous tasks, go for queues than LCA. If there is any complex logic which impact on the performance, it's better to do such operations outside the Reltio, maybe in the ETL. So review process. Before submitting LCA for review, please do a self review by using the checklist provided in the Reltio doc portal. So this will help in the review speed up. And during the LCA review request, please mention what change has been done, and also mention the previous tickets. So we'll get context, and will speed up in the review. And always it's better to maintain the version for each update. So some of the best practices here we are sharing. Better to use customer name in the packaging structure to avoid confusions or conflicts for the LCAs. And LCA must be in stateless manner. LCAs are actually will be loaded dynamically during the execution, and it will not maintain any caching. If LCA in the LCA code, if some data is maintained in the cache, that will not be available for the subsequent requests. So better not to use any caches or not to store any data in the memory. Better to use select the hook appropriately based on the requirement. Do discuss with your solution team or PS team before choosing the LCA and hook. And LCA should be executed within the time. It should not. We have a guardrail of 50 milliseconds. Please make sure the LCA executed within the given time, and make sure the LCA consume more memory, because if it's consume more memory, it will lead to the out of memory issues. Don't use much laggers, as it impacts on the performance. Try to avoid external calls like reading the file or making a network calls, and also avoid Reltio API calls unless if absolutely required. Use Reltio Reltio API object which is provided using the libraries, because this object already holds the token, so you don't need to regenerate the token again. And using this object, make the API calls to improve the to speed up the API call. Pass execute LCA equal false during the any API call on post with post or put or delete methods. With this will allow in the loop. Try to use lookup codes in the code than value. Sorry. Yeah. In any of the before hooks, we don't return null if there is no update. So don't return data if there is no update. SDK do a delta check if there is a data returned from the LCA. If there is no update, then if you return null, this delta check will be avoided. So it will improve the performance. Better to write some unit test cases to cover all the business requirements, so the multiple updates of the LCA can be avoided. If there are, we can have a have a filter in the business model while LCA configuration, wherein you can make LCA call when like when country equal to USA. So if there is such requirement, use filters. So it will not call LCA for all the requests. Yep. My colleague Shiva will give you a demo on the development and deployment of the LCA. Shiva, over to you.
Oh, thank you. Would you please answer? Yeah, thank you. So yes, so I am Shivaputrappa Patil. I am part of the RDM Cleans and the LCA team. So in this demo, what I'm gonna cover is that the prerequisite of the LCA and the quick cloning of our sample repo, and we will compile it and deploy it onto the AWS, and then followed by the execution from the NPM hub, so that the whole full cycle will be completed. And in this demo, what I will build is the validate hook in order to stop the bad data getting saved. So that's all. That's the thing I wanted to cover as part of this demo. So what you're seeing on the screen is this is our the Lambda sample public repo that we have it, and in this repo we have some of the most popular hooks examples and how to test it, or that things we have saved it here. So what I'm gonna do is to begin with, let me clone this repo into my desktop here, and so this is cloned. And so what I'm gonna do is we talk about the prerequisite. The Java 1.8 is required, the minimum Java 1.8, and the Maven the version is 3.5.4. That's the one thing is required. And the another important one is the settings file, wherein it has the credentials of repo in order to compile this Maven project. So we would need to have the settings file. This is available in the same Bitbucket repo in the wiki section. So what I'm doing is I am downloading this one. So the settings file that is downloaded, I am putting it into here. So now I will straight away try to download it. Compile it. So for the demo purpose, I'm not running the test case. And how do you tell the Maven to use this settings file is with the -s argument here, -s, and then settings.xml. As you have seen, I have copied the settings.xml into the same directory here. Yeah. Now this will compile, and this will generate one dist file. It will contain all the libraries that are required in order to execute this as an LCA.
Shiv, a quick question.
Yes.
Are there any plans to move away from the Java only requirements on LCAs?
Yes, that's the there is a question that we have received it already, and as the question mainly comes from the AWS Lambda because it supports the multiple language right now, and there is no real technical the restriction as in customer has to use only Java. The only benefit they will get by using the Java or the public repo that we have is it supports, rather you do not need to use any external library in order to make Reltio API calls. So that's the benefit. They will get it when they use the Reltio SDKs, or rather the Java based one. So that's the benefit they get right now. If they want to move out of the Java itself, yes, customer definitely can use it. For unfortunately, what we have is right now we do not have any support for that at this moment, but that doesn't stop customer using it because to give you an example, I have built one Python-based Python-based LC for that one to concatenate first name and then last name, putting into the full name. So that's how I have done it. So having said that, yes, for now you will be able to use the non-Java AWS functions also, but the way that we have this one, the libraries, we do not have them available at this moment.
Okay. And then what's inside the setting XML file that you're doing?
This has the credentials to our read-only records.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then last question, I promise, for now. If we use AWS Lambda, will similar library files be available?
Right now, I'm compiling the AWS Lambda itself.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
because our recommendation is the AWS Lambda. I thought that would be the best thing to show demo. So that's why I'm demoing right now. So it is taking some time in order to compile.
And I have another question then. So, while that compiles is, should have said, do we have any plan to document or get code of the non-Java LCA? Maybe Python?
Saurabh, would you be able to take up that question?
I can take. Yeah. Actually, non-Java is we strongly not recommend now because we need to provide good enough documentation on that, because if someone with Java based, we already provided libraries for any modifications on the data object. But with non-Java, if they have to do, means it has to be as per the JS1 should be as per our standards. If they give if they give improper format, we may not able to process it. So right now we don't recommend to do that, as we don't have much documentation. Maybe that we have to see in future how we do it.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's right. As recommended, we would say that Java would give you a better performance as well as better way of maintaining that code, because you can use those libraries and the Java SDK that we provide to be able to access the data and perform operations on that. With non-Java LCAs like Python or something else, you might have to do a lot of work on that, which would mean that a lot of code is running, and that could impact the performance, right? Unless you're doing things like in a completely asynchronous manner. But if you want to do it in a synchronous manner in a proper LCA, we would recommend to use Java for now. But it's a good feedback. If there are any advice on recommendations on what other technologies that you prefer, whether it's Python, Node.js, something else, please go ahead and create an idea on AHA portal, and we would be happy to provide feedback on that and consider those in our roadmap.
Thanks, Gaurav. And looks like it's still going. And so another question is, if my understanding is correct, DVF also internally uses LCAs. So while running a data load, if we set, executive LCA equals false, but have the DVFs enabled, will DVFs still be executed?
It doesn't execute if we disable, if we use that parameter execute LCA is equal to false, then it doesn't execute. In fact, we would recommend not to enable that is DVF while the data load is on. What you can do is you can complete the data load by disabling the LCA and then run the revalidation task at the end of the IDF.
Yeah, actually DVF is a shared LCA and that maintained by Reltio, and it's a single source code, and this is executes within our Reltio platform, and here customers are only writing the rules, so the all execution will be handled by the Reltio SDK. So that's why we prefer to use DVF than LCA.
Okay. And I guess we're still waiting for this to download. It's a lot of it's big, huh?
Yeah, we can go for any other questions if they.
There's not. There's well, there is actually. How's performance impacted exactly? Like in case one decides to use LCA for longer running tasks, is the issue that it's taking away from tenant resources used for the match merge data load? Does that make sense?
Sorry, let me see the question again. How does performance impact exactly? To use LCA for longer run tasks. Yeah, since LCAs are invoked while data load, it is so it's we using before say hook. So if any long operation performed in LCA, so it will take more time to in the LCA only, and the overall data load will be performance will be impacted.
Okay, thank you. And that's all the questions for now.
Here, I'll just ask one verbally. So if you have LCAs configured and you're about to do a data load of 1 million records or whatever, what is the best way to disable the LCA for the period of time of the data load and then re-enable it afterwards?
Yeah.
The data loader itself will enable you to disable the LCA while executing it. That's the parameter that Denzel talked about earlier. Execute LCA is equal to false.
Yeah. There's one way, and other way is you can you can turn off the in the Reltio business model. You can just come and remove that lifecycle actions. It will not invoke. The better way is to use the parameter
for the data load, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Alternatively, suppose for a moment I wasn't doing a data load. Suppose I went to the console, the UI, the Reltio UI, and I selected, 250,000 records and was going to do a bulk update on them in some manner, but I knew ahead of time that I don't want the LCA to fire while that bulk update is taking place. What's the best way to disable it for that use case?
Yeah, in that case, the only way is to update the business configuration, or another way is maybe you can, if it is a native LCA, we can, better way is to remove that action from the business configuration. In that case, through UI, we don't have that option to pass the parameter.
Okay, got it.
And where is this business configuration?
Business configuration is it's L3.
L3. Oh, okay.
But again, to your point, that part of the L3 is not available through the UI configuration console. So I would have to go to Postman, crack open the L3,
correct, and post it.
Comment out the thing. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's the only way right now.
Okay.
Okay, finally we are here. we are able to compile this one. So it is compiled. What we have to do is right now, I will log into my AWS account and we'll create an AWS function, Lambda function. We talked about the runtime. We have to use the Java 8, and there is one special thing that we need to consider here is the role that is provided to this Lambda. What are the permission that is required for this Lambda is to execute the invoke permission, and another one is the CloudWatch log. So these are the bare minimum things that is required. And now I have created a Lambda function. So let's upload the source the jar file that is there on my desktop. So we need to give the action this one, and this is our action. This is very simple action. What it validates is that the first name should not starts with this symbol, and the same follows with the last name. This is very basic LCA that is there available. And we need to give the fully qualified package name here in this one. Yeah, that's it. We are done in the AWS side, and let me configure this LCA itself here. What differentiates between the native and the Lambda is this one, just syntax. The Lambda goes with the Lambda / binary JSON, and the function name. In case of a native, it is directly an LCA name. So I'm pushing it to the Shivaputrappa tenant here. Yeah, so our LCA has been pushed. So let me log into the tenant here. So what I have done is I have applied it on the HCP entity. So let me create one HCP with the first name starting with hash, so that it will be validated. If you see this one, this validation message is actually coming from the LC itself. So this one. Same goes with the last name. Yep. But yeah, this is successfully saved, having validation passed. That's all I have had it for the Lambda demo. We'll come back over to you, Thirupathi.
Yep. Thanks, Shiva.
So I do have a question before we go to the next thing.
Yeah.
So I assume you can have multiple LCAs applied to a single action. So for example, like before save. So for an entity type, if so, is there a sequence that each LCA triggers or they run in parallel?
They
No.
run in sequence.
Yeah, it will run in a sequence. It will not be executed in the parallel, one by one. And moreover, if one LCA, first LCA changes some data, the second LCA will get that updated data. If it's
How-
a before.
How do you define the sequence? Is it just by the list that in the L3 data model, you apply the first LCA at the top that you want to run first?
Correct. It will go in the same sequence what you mentioned in the business model.
Great, thank you.
Any
Like
other
you can
questions?
consider putting them all of the same hook into one LCA if possible.
Yeah. Before
Great.
moving to DVF, any questions on the LCA? Any other questions?
Not yet.
Just one. You
Yep.
had a recommendation early on around that the LCA shouldn't take longer than 50 milliseconds to execute. If you had an LCA, I'm just curious from your experience, if you had an LCA that did nothing at all in its body, but just return,
Mhm.
how long would you expect the call to Lambda and the return to come back from Lambda to take just itself without actually doing any real work?
Yeah, the 50 milliseconds includes the call, the HTTP network calls also. Yeah, if it we expect the 50 milliseconds in the execution time. Right now, if any such LCS is taking longer time, we can improve. We can change the timeout in the tenant level.
Yeah, but I'm just saying from your experience, if the LCA weren't actually doing any real work, it just called Lambda and Lambda returned immediately, how long would you expect that to take in just...
Okay, okay. That I frankly have not checked that execution time, but it depends on the network latency. It may maybe around some if it's in the same environment, it should not take more than I think 100 milliseconds. I don't know exactly. I not measured it.
Yeah, so that's what I'm wondering, if just the use of Lambda itself would exceed your 50 millisecond recommendation for execution time.
Yeah, I got it. Actually, we mentioned that 50 milliseconds for the LCA execution, not considering the network latency, because that we can't avoid. The recommendation is to try that in the testing and see how LCA is taking the time. LCA execution.
There are other factors that impact the time. Is the very old famous issue that comes up with the Lambda is the cold start issues. That's also adds an impact, and but AWS declares that will be 0.001% of the calls that will have a cold start issues.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
No other questions that I see. Is there more? I assume.
Sure. Do you want to, I'm not sure if you're able to cover how to execute these Lambda locally and see how the performance of that code is.
We do not have it planned. We don't
Okay.
want to have it done abruptly. Do you want us to do that?
Yeah, so generally our recommendation of our customers is to be able to run those code locally, see how the performance of that code is before reaching out to a Reltio for a review or recommendations on how to improve that code, right? And typically we get customers who are implementing these LCAs, deploying it on Lambda, and or have a performance issue, but those are not being realized by them, and we have to go back and tell them, give them a checklist of what needs to be improved. So I was wondering if you are able to show some way for customers to be able to run that code, see how the code is performing before reaching out to Reltio for a proper review.
So what we can do is we can have the very basic demo of how to test the source code rather than LCA, and the performance maybe we can take it up later.
Great. Okay. Well, it looks like we're done. Is that right, Shiva?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is perfect enough. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming. We do have a survey that will pop up from Zoom. Please take that and give us any recommendations on this show and other shows, or on other shows that you want to see. And we'll definitely take that in consideration. Any other questions from anybody? Thoughts?
Yes, this is Clint. I'm sorry I missed the first few minutes of this, but I'm trying to get a sense of, are there good candidate use cases for when a LCA is a good thing to use? I mean, it sounds like this framework's a little bit different, and the performance is still something that needs to be weighed very carefully. I'm trying to make sure that we're giving the right kind of guidance around when is it the right thing to do to go down the LCA path.
Yeah, I think they covered some of that in the very beginning, but any thoughts? Did they? Let's see here.
Yeah, Clint, I'll just say that if you go back and look at this recording afterwards, our original presenter put up a set of bullet items for when to use an LCA and when not to use an LCA, which I think is helpful.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that. I'll come back to it.
Yeah.
Great.
But basically, you know, in short, it has to do with whether or not you really need a synchronous execution or not, and how much time you think this LCA is really going to take, because it's going to affect the life cycle of the overall processing of the entity.
All right.
Thanks,
thank
Kurt.
you.
Are the presenters still around though? I have another question for DVF, but if not, I can try to.
No, I think they are. I see Shiva here. Yeah, and I see Graf.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So my question is related to DVFs. How many is too many, right? In terms of a customer trying to set them up. And then a second question is in terms of required fields, right? I know we have a parameter in the data model to set an attribute as required, which will show the error message if it's not there. But I've seen customers set up DVFs as well for missing values because they want to show it in the analytical attributes, right? To see statistics, right? How many records don't actually have a required value. So to summarize, right? First question, how many DVFs are too many? And then secondary is how do we choose whether to use the required parameter versus setting up a DVF, right? To specify a rule for missing values.
Yeah, there is no real restriction. We have as in the maximum validation functions per entity type. But considering the moving on to the second question, like mandatory attributes versus DVF, DVF does not stop you a data being saved. But if you put a mandatory equal to true, your UI will stop you saving the bad data. That's a insignificant difference between the mandatory versus DVF.
And to that point, I've noticed that if you put the DVF parameter in the before save and the validate, it does prevent you from saving the record.
Yes, it does. That if you enable it for the validate hook, it does stop you saving the data that does not pass the validation functions.
Okay, so it is okay to in order to prevent a record from being saved, right? To put the DVF component into the validate action, right?
This we will go back to the same recommendation that we have. If the requirement is achievable with the out of the box, we recommend you to use the out of the box functionality. Here in your case with the mandatory, it suffices your requirement. So you better go with the mandatory.
Okay, so just to clarify, right? DVF functions today, the way it's set up out of the box, you can set it up where you can still allow the save and then show the warning that there's an error, but you can also configure it where a user is unable to save it, right, until the quality issue is corrected.
Yes, and this is applicable only on the UI.
Yep.
Please note that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, and guys, we do have a DVF demo, so why don't we go ahead and get started with that? So thank you for all the questions, Brian. Kurt, thanks for speaking up.
Yep, thank you.
Chris, I have a question. Can I proceed or shall I wait?
Go ahead, Chetan.
Yeah, Shiva, I have a question. So Kurt has already mentioned, like we'll be planning to have what is applicable and what is not applicable that could come under LCA. Let's say, like if I have a date field, can I derive the value out of the, say for example, there's a date of birth in DDMMYYYY. I need another column to calculate the age out of it. Can we configure such kind of hooks using LCA?
You repeat the last part of it, date of birth, and then?
Okay, so let's say I have DDMMYYY format, which will be entered by the user, and I have another field in the same profile called as age. Let's say he is entering the value, and I need to derive the age out of the date of birth from that, calculating it. Can I able to do something like this in LCA?
Yes, you will be able to do it, but the question is, should you really have to use this LCA for that? And if you see our recommendation was using the streaming, right?
Okay. Okay.
What you can do is you can listen to the entities that are missing the age because they are newly created, and exist the date of birth. So this filters, if you enable it on your streaming, so what you can consume is the entities which have the date of birth and missing the age, so that we can stamp it back the age by that. Okay. Yes, to answer your family, yes, you will be able to do this with the LCA. In fact, if you see our out of the box LCA, what it does is before save, it will combine your first name and then last name and put it into your full name. So that's the example that we have it in our public record.
Sure. Okay. Noted. Thanks, Shiva. Thanks, Chris. Sorry for this.
You're welcome. No problem.
Great. And who's going to share their screen, Shiva or?
Yes, I'm going to do that. So okay. If there are no questions, then we can directly move on to the DVF. So yeah. So DVF, so how do we, I'll start DVF this way. When I will enable the DVF, there are a couple of configurations that we would need to do for the DVF. One is to enable the DVF LCA, plus defining those analytical attributes which holds the results of the validation function. So let me start with this one by moving into the console. So this is where let's go to the data modeler. I will define, rather enable the DVF for the HCP. And if you see here, there is a tab called validation functions. And right now, HCP is not enabled. So let me enable the DVF here. So it does two things. One is it will add the LCA to the HCP and create those analytical attributes in the HCP, which holds the results of it. So let me create one simple validation function on the first name. This is the name of a function, which will be appear in your validation results. And this is a simple description. What I'll say is first name cannot start with dollar for a change, and then this is the on which attribute that needs to be applicable, and this is very similar editor compared to the advanced search filter. I am saying that does start with dollar, and this is the message that you're gonna throw up in the UI or the analytical attribute. And that's it. This is an attribute, name, and then description. So this is an active. For now, this is the only warning. So let me save it here. And now that what we have done is we have enabled the DVF, plus we have defined the functions also. So there is another step that we would need to do in order to display the results of this validation functions into the UI. So I have moved to the UI modeler here.
Hey, while it's loading, quick question. In DVF, do we have an option to compare one attribute with another attribute? So for example, if I have a nested attribute with two child attributes, start date and end date, and need to validate that start date is not after end date? That's a question. And is it possible to do that with out of the box DVF?
Now, right now, unfortunately, it is not possible at this moment.
Quick answer. Thank you.
Yep. So this is the attribute. It holds the validation results. So this is a facet, single attribute facet that I have defined. Let me publish this. To quickly, rather to give you more on this one, the validation, the filters, the most of the filters that are available in the advanced search section are available in the DVF functionality. We can take up the okay. Good. So let me refresh this one. So all the configurations that have to be done are completed. So right now, what I'm gonna do is let me update this record by putting the $. If you see this, this did not stop you the data to be saved. Instead, it is showing your results here. So this is a function URI. You have defined it, and then the name of a function, and this is the expression that you have defined, and on which attribute it has been applied. For now, as we talked earlier, this is just a warning at this moment, and the name, the message of the validation function that you have defined.
Can you configure, see 1, 2, 3, I'm just looking at the nested attribute you have there. It has like 5 or 6 sub attributes. Can you expand that again, that validation message?
Sure. Yeah. Here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Can you configure which of those actually appear and which ones are hidden?
Yes. This is you can hide those attributes here from your data model.
Yeah, I'm not sure a business user really cares about that URI or the expression, those sorts of things.
Yeah, the one that we have displayed is all the data that we will save it for as part of the DVF, and like you said, you can show what is required.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. That's all I have it for the demo on the DVF.
Shiva, can I ask a question here?
Yes.
So let's say if you have 2 first names, does the data validation rule runs for the both or only one?
It will run for the both, and it will stop at when the first value validated.
Okay, we were seeing a scenario when the first is a match and second is doesn't match. the doesn't match doesn't show up as a error. Let's say
Yeah.
you have John Smith and the first name is $John Smith. After the first validation rule, I mean, we do not see the error coming up again.
Yeah, it will apply on OV value. Maybe another one is not operational value.
Both are operational only. It's an aggregation, both are operational.
Yeah, that's something we have to check it. Usually we apply on all the OV values. If one of the things also fail, and if any of the values fails against the rule, we'll show the message. Maybe something we have to check if what's wrong with that. Yeah.
Yeah, we opened a support ticket. They went to our engineering and they said it's a enhancement issue. It should be an enhancement. It's
Okay.
not available. So.
Yeah, maybe I have to. Yeah, we have to check it back. Yeah, not sure.
Thanks.
So a couple questions. Is there a way to, for the warning to be highlighted?
Warning to be highlighted in the sense, yeah, you want to show in separate, like, I did not get where in the UI you want to highlight the warnings.
You want to show it in a kind of a bold format or underline something like that. So I think it's not possible at this moment.
Yeah.
So it looks like, Michelle, it's not possible at the moment.
Yeah.
Can DVF be error instead of warning? Is that possible? Or can you select it when it needs to be a warning or an error?
Right now it is only
Sounds like an opportunity here.
Yeah, but right now it is
Okay.
Just the warning.
Just warning, correct.
Yeah, just the warning and the.
Can you
Go ahead.
go ahead? No, go ahead.
Yeah, the results will be saved into an analytical attribute the way I have shown you in the demo. Yeah. Data will be accepted and saved. The validation results will be saved to analytical attributes.
So another question, comment. Can you please change the rule to validate any other character like number, and after change, try to save with the old value of the dollar?
I'm reading
Does that
those
make
questions.
sense?
Don't validate any other character. Yes, it is. The dollar was just an example. you will be able to do that. Definitely, you will be able to do that.
And good suggestion, Michelle. Please do add that in the portal, and maybe we can get some folks to really vote on it. It's a good idea. Great. Anything else, guys? Any other questions? Oh, it's already there.
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead, Kurt.
Chris.
No, go ahead.
If you can hear me over this barking dog. So if you are concerned about a DVF or a Lambda function that you configure executing, let's say you're going to load 1 million records and you don't want it to execute, you don't want to slow down the data load or impact it in any way, so you suppress it during the data load. Now the data load's over, I've got my 1 million records in the tenant, and I do want the DVF or the function, the Lambda function, to now be applied to those 1 million records, because I do want the results to be in those 1 million records, right? What's the best way to now go back and execute that DVF on those records?
Yeah,
So the DVF, go ahead.
Yeah, we have a task actually, revalidate task in the portal. If you run it, it will apply on the data, and it will add the warnings or validations to the attributes, to the profiles.
Okay, so you can run a DVF task that's available in the console somewhere? Or?
Yes, it's available in the console.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
I think that's it.
I have a question here. So if I change the rule, does it say, for example, the question that I asked actually for the previous rule was the dollar is not allowed. Now I accept the dollar, but I do not accept the number as a new value. So any name starting with a number, I want to remove that. So does that get revalidated? I mean, how does the rule gets applied, and how does the validation message changes in that case if I change the rule?
Yeah, unless you run the revalidation test. Sir, yeah, unless you run the, Yeah, unless you run the revalidation task, it will not apply automatically. If you change any rules, if you then you need to run the task again, then it will apply the new rule on all the existing profiles.
Okay. Sometimes actually I have seen that it is still trying to persist the old rule. Say previously it was dollar was not accepted. Even if I change, it kind of sees that, and after running the job, still it shows that a dollar value still kind of is trying to restrict the dollar value in the game.
No, it will remove the old one and it adds the new violations only, because that if you have both rules, then it will show the both. But if you change the old one, then it will show only the new message. It will remove the old message.
Only the validation task has to be applied here, right?
Correct.
After the change. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Great. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming today. Really do appreciate it. We do have a community show coming up on Friday, so please go to community.reltio.com, click on the events tab and go to upcoming shows and RSVP today. So guys, thank you so much. And lastly, please take the survey at the end so that we can just get better for you. And please share your ideas. That'd be great. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.